make more money for a few cents to a dollar, or get better fringe benefits. Cass County government should consider a move back to the defined benefit system to be permanent. Jumping back and forth is far worse, far more expensive, and way more unfair than switching one way or the other. It will be interesting to see how the commissioners, the U.S. commissioners, balance the proposed 2024 budget with a return to a pension, if that's what you choose, starting with a projected deficit of nearly $3.5 million. I also looked at the suggested makeup for an ad hoc advisory panel to recommend ways to spend the county's opioid funds, and wondered if there should be representation from our educational institutions. Finally, I would like to add a comment about the Land Bank Authority, which met recently. Thanks to their work, and especially efforts of our county treasurer, Hope Anderson, significant state funding is coming, and more will probably come in the near future. These American Rescue Fund dollars are helping to demolish properties that cannot be turned into urgently needed housing. I would note that our current Congressman, Republican Tim Walberg, voted against the American Rescue Plan, which is now providing funds and jobs for these projects, including the courthouse renovation right here in Cass County. Thank you.
Thank you. Next. Going once, going twice. Public comment is now closed. Number 6, additions, deletions to the agenda.
Commissioner, I would like to move to approve the agenda as amended to include under new business F, the My Hope Grant Round 4.
Second.
There's a motion with support. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, Commissioner Marquetti.
Yes.
I already did it. That's what we just did, isn't it?
We made an addition to
Oh,
the
okay,
agenda.
okay.
I move we approve the agenda as amended.
Support.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Number 8, approval of the June 15th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes. Commissioner Locke.
Move to approve the June 15th, 2023 Committee of the Whole meeting minutes.
I
Support.
second that.
There's a motion with support. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 9 is presentations, with the first one being a medical assisted treatment program.
I sent a message saying they couldn't make it this meeting right after we scheduled it. They went on vacation from Wayne State University, so we're hoping to do that in August.
It's item B.
Okay.
Julie?
Wonderful, so I even get more time.
Nope, still 10 minutes, sorry.
Yeah, start now, so
Mr.
speak
Chair.
fast.
So thank you so much for allowing us to present the MSU Extension Annual Report for 2022. My name is Julie Fiat, your District Director for Cass County. I cover all of Southwest Michigan, 7 counties in the corner here. You did receive the annual report in your electronic packet, and I also provided some hard copies for you at your desks. Please share those with others, your townships or others that you want to give the information to. Please don't let it end up in your recycling bin too quickly is what I'm asking. Colored copies, you know, expensive, right? I wanted to draw your attention just to a couple of points. One is in my message from the district director, I noted that over $1 million was garnered by our extension educators just in Southwest Michigan to leverage their work in the area. And I thought that was pretty impressive. That funds research and extension activities in the area. Another thing I wanted to point out is the general fund appropriations, that little block in the corner. I know you're struggling with some budget issues right now, typical per this time of year. Our appropriations are there, and I wanted to note that that primarily covers the 4-H program and some operating, and our full-time support staff person. So that's the funds that you give from appropriations. However, you do provide us with an office downstairs on the lower level where Brenny, Patty, and Nora are housed, and that also is quite a big contribution of the county. So we can talk more about that at another time if you wish. The numbers are there. Another document I gave you is just an attachment, sort of the support document to the numbers there, the 272 extension programs that included Cass County residents. This is the documentation of what those programs were. You can see the breadth of the programs that your residents are taking advantage of that are provided by extension. So I don't want to talk anymore because I have several staff here who would like to introduce themselves to you, tell you what they are doing for Cass County. And I'm going to start with Yolanda. Simply, I'm glad she was sitting behind me. Right up, Yolanda. Come on up, Yolanda. Yolanda is housed in Berrien County, but covers Van Buren, Berrien, and Cass. So just introduce yourself, Yolanda. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Yolanda Thrash, and I've been with Michigan State for 21 years, and I work with the Michigan Vaccine Project, and I go into the community and educate families on the importance of immunizations and vaccines. And I'm the one that gifted you with the MVP. I work with the Michigan Vaccine Project, so I've gifted you with the hand sanitizer, so.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Yolanda. She's got to scoot out, so I thought I'd have her go first. Let's see. Lyndon, do you want to go next?
Sure. So my name's Lyndon Kelly. I work for Michigan State University in Purdue Extension, housed out of just next door over in St. Joe County. Cass County is blessed with 71,000 irrigated acres. I do irrigation education for the two states. That 71,000 acres is 10% of the state's, the state of Michigan's irrigation is here in Cass County, and it's growing at a rate of about 4% per year, looking at USDA Ag statistics. That supports a lot of high dollar crops, whether the irrigation's here for the high dollar crops or the high dollar crops are here because the irrigation's here. The combination of irrigation and sandy soil brings high dollar crops because it reduces risk. That builds tax base. Land sells for more where there's irrigation available. And we've done that without causing adverse resource impact. We know that because of some of the extensive studies that have been done in Cass County, the Cass County study and some of the USGS river work that's there. I'd be glad to answer any questions about irrigation afterwards, or you can get a hold of me through Julie.
Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Tyler Augst, and I'm your Government and Community Vitality Educator here in Southwest Michigan. Based out of our Van Buren offices, but live here in Volenia Township and serve generally this corner of the state on all sorts of training, education, outreach, and support to local elected and appointed officials, community leaders, interested residents, about all things government and community development. So primarily I'm working in land use, that's your planning and zoning type stuff, through some of our flagship programs like Citizen Planner, that provides 18 hours of education for those planning commissioners, zoning board of appeals members. We also have additional trainings for zoning administrators, those actually doing the work day to day. We also just this last year launched a specific course for zoning board of appeals members that has been getting some positive reviews around the state that takes a deep dive into that very niche area of service some of our folks are doing out there. In addition to that planning and zoning work, also involved in work around effective meetings, tourism, some of which is highlighted in the annual report, communicating through conflict, a lot of things, just whatever the need is here for our leaders to make sure you all have what you need to do. So if there are ever any questions, give a holler. Like I said, I'm just down the street.
Thank you.
So Tyler's teamwork is highlighted quite a bit in the report. We've had some major success with the long-term initiative, so it's neat that we can show that progress. Stalling just a little bit because Ben's not quite here yet, but I want to highlight now the two staff that are housed in this office. Nora Lee couldn't be here tonight. She's housed downstairs. She does our nutrition program, but I'll let John Laporte talk next.
Hello everyone, I'm John Laporte. I am the Farm Business Management Educator here in the Southwest, housed out of Cassopolis, but I cover 10 counties and do a lot of statewide work. Some of the areas I work in revolve around beginning farmers, so helping folks get actually started in their farming operation. I also do a lot of work around risk management, so looking at marketing, also at insurance. In fact, this year you've noticed a couple times this year we've had some dry spells, and we're still a little bit worried about the outcome of some of the crops and what they're going to be like. There are insurance policies out there and programs that help people try to mitigate the risk that weather and some cases, we've had some volatile markets going on this year. One of the new things that we're going to be starting this year, actually in October, is a new program focused on helping producers better understand their options within insurance policies. We're eventually going to expand into do some additional marketing type programs as well. So I wear a lot of different hats when it comes to the business side of things. I'm usually the money person, as people like to say, but trying to help farms be more profitable and more sustainable over time.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
And our 4-H program coordinator?
And the only one that had a little card. I'm Rennie Witham, the 4-H program coordinator. A little update on our numbers this year. We're up to 677 registered 4-H members, which is up from last year. We had 18 members attend a program called Exploration Days, held up at Michigan State University, which is a pre-college program, and that went very well. That was at the end of June, but a little closer to right after that, we had 3 members attend Citizenship Washington Focus, which is a program that connects young leaders from across the country to be able to gain the skills and experiences to become effective change agents. We were actually one of the two counties that had the most that attended from their county, so it was only 3, but we were mighty. Lastly, fair is massively underway. Our numbers are up there too. So as you're strolling downtown, take a look at the signs up that are going through, because you're going to see some of our 2023 graduates that are in the 4-H program.
Nice,
So,
nice.
Have you seen them? We need to- Good. I did want to make a note, Beth Ferry is our swine educator, and she was housed in Cassopolis for many years. I moved her over to Berry, and she still covers a lot in Cass because of the swine industry here. But Berry office was 5 minutes from her house, so it made a lot more sense for her to be there. But she wanted me to note the partnership that she's been working on with the Sheriff's Department and your Animal Control Department with Ron and Sheriff Banky on the E-Rail program, the emergency response to animals involved in accidents involving livestock,
Yeah.
whereby they train first responders to go out and help with accidents when they occur. She has been able to secure equipment, to have a trailer and the training at very minimal cost to the locals to serve Berrien and Cass. I don't know if Ron or Sheriff, that's true, right?
We've been doing a meeting.
Yeah, what's that?
We've been doing a meeting.
We've been to a meeting, all right, good, and I know you've been working on it. And last but not least, our specialist from our Research Extension Center in Berrien in Benton Harbor just walked in with a crate of something, Ben Phillips. Please, just in time, Ben.
Hey everybody, I'm the vegetable guy, and so I thought what better than to bring you the truest vegetable of them all, a big fat stem, kohlrabi. Kohlrabi, anybody know kohlrabi? You know kohlrabi? You love it.
I've grown it before,
And
but
you've
not this
grown it
year.
before, okay.
It's very good.
Can you tell the board a little bit more about kohlrabi?
Oh, well, it looks like something from outer space.
Yes, that's how it was.
It does, and you can you can grow it in purple. It's really easy to grow. You can cook it, or you can slice it and eat it raw. It's a multi-purpose vegetable.
Yes, I like to pickle it.
Yep,
I made chips out of it.
yep, dehydrate it.
And you can also just slice it and put a little salt on it. It's very delicious, just like that. That's how my grandpa liked it.
I do have a question though. What kind of
I'll give
vitamins
this to
or
the audience
minerals
to
are
throw
in
at
this?
me.
I counted 9.
That's okay.
Yeah,
doesn't eat vegetables.
you gave me one. I'm just the clerk, I'm number 9.
You're just
I'm
the
just
clerk?
the
Matt will do
She
okay
has
with that
growing
one.
girls, she needs to grow.
I'm good, I'm good.
Yes,
Okay.
babies are still too young to chew
We
that.
can't wait for you to drive back and get a 9.
So Ben, tell them what you
Kind of has
I work with all
cabbage smell
vegetable
to it.
growers in District 13, including Cass County. If they grow vegetables and they want to talk about them, get a load off their chest, or if they have a serious issue, that's what I'm there for. I like to talk about problems. Sometimes people just call me and there isn't a problem, and I guess it's therapy. And that's not something I got trained in, but I do okay at it, I guess. At the research farm, I do variety trials mainly, looking at things that grow well in this part of the state. The kohlrabi was not part of a trial, but we were doing a trial on broccoli and cauliflower because those are cool season crops, just like kohlrabi is. But they're very sensitive to the heat and we'd like to see which varieties do the best if you plant them in the spring, harvest them in the summertime. And when we have those types of projects, we always have space around it. We call them guard rows, in case somebody, loses control of a tractor or something like that. The first row they run over is not a data row. And so in those rows, we put fun stuff like kohlrabi. And that's why I have so much to give away. And I hope you enjoy it, and really do give it a shot. Some people call it cabbage apple, because once you cut it open, it's all one texture throughout, much like an apple, no core. And it's nice and crunchy, very juicy and sweet.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time, and I really appreciate you covering for me and waiting.
Thank you. So thank you for your support. These gifts, obviously, pass them along, use them, there for more information and stuff. This is the kind of programs we do in the community. And if you ever have any questions, please let me know. If any one of you would like to have a conversation about extension and what how the county contributes and everything, just please give me a call. I'm available. And I've been watching your meetings online, so I haven't been here, and I so appreciate that. I travel a lot, I drive a lot, very much appreciate having that online and for me to eat my dinner too, or drive. Most of the time I'm driving and listening to it, so I appreciate that. So that's why I haven't seen my face. So anyway, I've been paying attention, so thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
much.
you, Julie.
Thanks for your support.
Thank you.
Moving to number 10 is committee reports. Do we have any committees that would like to give a report?
Go ahead, Mary.
Okay, well, I've got a hodgepodge of stuff in my report. Attended the,
It's-
I'm not first, right?
So if nobody's got any committee reports, we're going to move along to number 11, and we'll let her go first for her district report. Everybody cool with that? Because it sounded like you were going into a district report versus a committee report.
Right.
Okay. If everybody's fine with that, we'll go right into her for district
Okay.
report. Unless you've got something for committees.
I do.
Oh.
I do.
We'll put you
Okay.
on pause. Go ahead, Roseanne.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. On June 20th, I chaired the Southwest Michigan Planning Commission meeting, and we approved the annual report and the NATS, Niles Area Transportation Study 2050 Long Range Plan. Then on the 27th, I attended the NATS meeting, and the NATS board voted for the NATS 2050 Long Range Plans. And I know that 2050 is a long way away, but it's an example of how far transportation planning goes. I also attended the June Woodlands meeting, and they received an award for outstanding improvement in the area of reporting to SWIMBA. Their scores all were in the 90s, and Bradley Casemore was present to give the award. He's the chief of SWIMBA. On July 5th, DHHS met, and the presentation was from 211, which is called Griffin Place. United Way contracts with Griffin Place to do their 211 Resource Center. It's a toll-free number, and they will help find services and resources that are available locally. Some of those services are childcare, education, health and mental health, housing, shelter, and utility payment needs. Lastly, I attended a webinar on planning for opioid fund uses. There was a presentation by the community director of Lenawee County and a presentation by the Berrien County Public Health Department, and each has formed a task force to study what to do with the opioid money. That's it.
All right, so we'll continue right on with those. Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Attended the, it was like 2 Wednesdays ago, with Chair Jones, the Board of Health. And they talked about Lyme disease, and I've got some information that I'm gonna pass out about the black-legged tick. Tick season is in full blown. I never had ticks in my yard, but I found them already. But this information will talk about the symptoms, the stages, and when to see a doctor, complications, risk factors, and prevention, protection on all this. So if you're interested, I do have copies, and I could make copies for anybody out there that would like this information too.
And they said we had 2 cases of Lyme disease in the county, in our county, didn't they?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
A friend of mine just ended up with Lyme disease and he had sepsis from it.
He might have been one of the two then. Yeah.
And also this Friday, the Council on Aging is hosting a concert summer series. And this Friday, Bob Seger Tribute Band will be there. It starts at 5:30, I believe, 5 or 5:30. They're going to have 3 food wagons. And then the band will start at 7. So they're expecting a lot of people, and my husband and I are going to try to attend. But the last one, the last concert they had over 200 people. So it was really good. So, and they have the Whistle Pigs coming up too, and they're also a good band. So, and I think that's it. Oh, Cass County Fair, of course, is coming up too. It starts actually the Saturday, but officially Monday, July 31st will be Veterans Day. August 1st is Kitty's Day. August 2nd is Law Enforcement Day. Thursday, Senior Citizens Day, 60 and older. We'll get in so I can do that. I'm a senior citizen. Friday, Frontline. Friday and Healthcare Providers Day. Saturday is Family Day. $1 to get in from 8 to 2.
You don't look a day over 35.
Oh, you're so sweet.
He's just trying to get on your good side.
Does anybody have any questions for Commissioner Howie? All right, Commissioner Lawrence, go ahead with your report if you have one.
Yes, this has been quite a controversy for quite some time now, but the Pride Care Ambulance Service, I'm sure everybody's heard something about that. I attended a meeting this week with the local City of Dowagiac and Wayne Township and some of the other townships around. And what we gathered from that is the fact that the owner is going to honor the contract through December 31st.
Mm-hmm.
And so once that gets done, and right now, everybody's trying to scramble to figure out how we're going to fund the Pride Care Ambulance, because they're coming in, pretty much coming into Cass County only. So, and Wayne Township has, Wayne Township Fire Department has provided Pride Care Ambulance with a bay so they can put a ALS unit there. So that's happened. They're also, again, talking about a possibility of a countywide millage so that we can do this jointly and countywide and don't have to try to go out. Because right now, the problem is between the townships and the city and so on and so forth, who's going to pay what, how are we going to pay for this, and so that's what they're looking at now.
Any questions for him?
I just have a comment. We talked about that at the county leaders meeting last night. So Frank was there, and Larry Davis from Volinius.
And I'd also like to add that Nick is the director there.
Yeah.
He's a really nice young man, very knowledgeable, and his desire is to serve here in Cass County.
All right, moving on. Commissioner Locke? No report. Chair Jones?
Nope.
Commissioner Barrera?
Very typical meeting at Milton yesterday, rezoning a property from single-family residential to commercial. There's going to be a public hearing regarding the fee schedule for SMACUS, SAD being increased from $30 to $35. Really, the only other thing that stood out was we had some concerns from residents about some drag racing going on Leet Road. It is my understanding that Supervisor Rankin is going to be working with the community, the sheriff, and the attorney to address this issue. That's about it.
Any questions for him? Commissioner Lee?
Yep, so I had a Southwestern Michigan Behavioral Health meeting on Monday. We were going over the budget for them for next year. It looks like Cass County with that, so it's all about like the alcohol tax and the money that comes from that gets used within the county. So one, it looks like what we're gonna have is gonna be well within budget for this year. Looks like next year we're gonna go from, so money available from that tax is gonna go from $79,000 to $99,000. So it sounds like people are drinking more alcohol in the county. But it looks like, again, we'll still have a balanced budget for that within the county, within our county, for certain outpatient treatment services and then for education purposes. And then Calvin Township meeting went really well. They had several questions about zoning and going through that, and then several questions about marijuana production, especially along the northern part. And just so it's clarified, Calvin Township does not allow for the growth or sale of marijuana, just for their sake. Porter was done quick, and that's all I have. Any questions, Paul? Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, Mason Township, the Mason Township meeting, they helped SEPSA, which is the Southeast Public Safety Authority, with a funding request for rescue tools. And on July 17th in Antwa, there was a groundbreaking ceremony for a new veterinary hospital on Route 12, on the east side of 12, just north of where Bigby Coffee is. And Dr. Chris Payton is a veterinarian who's building the hospital, and he hopes to be in January. That's it.
Okay. I have no report, so we'll move on to number 12 for the administrator's report.
I'll touch on a couple things. My report's in the packet, but I'll highlight a few areas. Historic courthouse, we're still working through that. If I've learned anything, it's that congressionally directed spending grants take a lot of effort and a lot of time, unfortunately. But this past week, we had correspondence with actually the state director for USDA. They are completing kind of their final review and said that we are hoping to have funding obligated ideally within the next 30 days or sooner. So we should have that ready to go here pretty quick. Construction, we anticipate construction starting roughly around the middle of August. Again, subject to, kind of final approvals, but that's what we're looking at right now. In the interim period, we've done quite a bit with planning for kind of the AV technology that's going to go in the building, trying to make sure we are kind of planning for the future in terms of what the needs for the county will be, but then also being realistic in terms of how we're outfitting meeting spaces and things like that. Do we need a certain level of technology here? Can we save money in other places? So, we're having some really good conversations there. And we've also explored some furniture options throughout that as well too. So the idea is that once we have everything set with USDA, construction can start full speed ahead and hit the ground running. Most people probably have heard already by now, but just to clarify, with the Robin Grant, MEC was actually the largest recipient of funds from the Robin Grant. There is a 45-day public comment period now, but once that's completed, a final list of awarded locations will come out from the state. Cass County has, I think Marcellus, Valenia, Wayne, Silver Creek, Pokagon, Mason, Howard, and Milton are the townships that will have services extended to them for areas that are lacking broadband connections now. So it's a pretty big project for MEC, spans actually across all of Berrien, Cass, and Van Buren, so we're excited for that. The county did have a matching component there. Based on the feedback we heard from MEC, their plan is to actually focus on getting everything built out, kind of bearing that cost up front. There's a reimbursement associated with that through the grant, and then looking at billing back matching components to the local units in the county after that. So we would actually anticipate that to come probably fiscal year 25, maybe even a portion of fiscal year 26. So not something we have to worry about right away, but something that finance director and I are looking to plan ahead for the future. Last thing I'll touch on, we're working on a program with ABM. They are actually a company that focuses on facility assessment. So you might remember we talked about this a few times. Tower Pinkster came out about 2 years ago now and did an assessment of all of our county buildings and said, here's what we think you're going to need for capital improvements. It's great to have an idea of what needs there are, but the next logical question is, okay, how do we pay for those things? This is kind of where AVM kind of specializes. So they look, and some of the things they're not going to focus on, obviously, they're not going to look at parking lots, things like that, but AVM focuses pretty heavily on mechanicals and energy efficiency, things like that. And their idea, of course, is looking at things like HVAC units, things along those lines, and saying, okay, well, if you're going to need replacements, can we look at higher efficiency units where you're going to see energy savings on a monthly basis and then kind of build that in over a 10-year time frame and have something that's essentially going to pay for itself over a certain length of time. They also connect us with grant opportunities in terms of our facilities. So the initial kind of 90 to 120 day period here is providing documentation to them on our utility bills, things like that. And then they'll come out, walk our different buildings, work with our facilities department to kind of do an assessment. And then they'll bring a report back and say, here's what we found, and any recommendations they might have. There's no cost to us up front for that work. There would only be potentially costs if we decided to embark on a project with them, and we'll have more information as we get through that.
Okay.
Any
Any
questions?
questions?
Yep, just clarification for previous questions with the historical courthouse. Nothing else has been done or any other information other than what you've got here since like the last time, and we've always been waiting on that congressionally directed spending before we could do anything.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say that we've done is, obviously, one of the things that comes up with with construction is kind of planning for the future in terms of, obviously outside of the main structure, what are we looking at for furniture and technology, and where are we putting TVs and desks and things like that. I mean, so there's been quite a bit of things like that, kind of refining final design elements, but in terms of actual construction, no. That's been the big holdup, is waiting on that congressionally directed spending.
We've had questions of people wanting the monthly updates or something, but it really wasn't nothing. So
No construction can take place until the
yeah,
congressional directed spending.
nothing. So after that, August, then we can start getting updates and
And
things.
what we should be, and we'll,
Yeah.
and I guess just so everybody knows, we are planning to have a portion of the website dedicated to kind of highlighting where the construction is happening, giving us, pictures, looking at, kind of basic budget numbers and going through those things as well too. So we do plan to have a good engagement with our community and obviously the employees as well, so that people can kind of see what's happening and be able to be informed about, the progress of the project.
Mhm.
In the meantime, we are paying the contractor monthly, aren't we?
Yeah.
And that's all going towards this.
Yeah,
Yes.
and that was actually a preset total, so, the length of the project doesn't make any difference in that regard. I mean, we've had kind of some of those retainage fees that we agreed to those fees as part of the initial project. So we're paying them now, but it's not like if the project extends because of, the delays we've run into, that there's any additional costs. It's already preset, so, they're actually doing a lot of work in the background on, kind of the initial planning and things like that, to try to make sure that once construction goes, we can start right away. There isn't gonna be any, hold up in terms of, hey, how do we wanna approach this, or, what do we wanna do for the technology piece? We've got all of that in place now. So it has allowed us to hone in on some of the design elements as well.
I can understand that some of this is taking longer than we fully anticipated, but the retaining fees, could you tell me what that roughly is?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd have to look up exactly, but Plaza Corp is our owner's representative. I think is it approximately 650,000, I think, altogether as part of the project.
Yes, seems close.
That's
It's
yeah.
between that and 7, I
I
think.
think there's a cap on it, essentially. It was a percentage of the total project with a cap that was there. So it can fluctuate as we get towards the end, depending on what the final total is, but, they've been pretty heavily involved with making sure that we're planning for the permitting process. So they were in the meetings with the village to make sure all the building permits were there. They've been heavily involved in coordination between our construction manager and, the technology firm that we've worked with in terms of identifying what we need in terms of technology for the commissioners' chambers and how we're approaching the overall design of the building. They're serving as a liaison with the architect, and so they double check all of the bills that are gonna come in, and obviously they haven't had as much now, but that'll be a big component once we get into construction, is confirming the work that's being done, having the expertise to be able to go in and say, yep, that's done exactly how it's supposed to be. Nope, that needs to have touch-up work, things like that. I will say that for me, I'm not a construction expert, so having those experts able to kind of help guide us through this process is really helpful.
Sure. I really hope to see something get done in August.
Oh, you do.
Yeah.
I can give you the phone numbers of the people we've been talking to.
I'll tell you, we've been on the phone with Senator Peters' office and state representatives and the USDA, both our local office and state offices, and we've been screaming out loud to try to get this moving as fast as possible.
We started this last October.
Yep.
And from Plaza Corp, John Walsh, he's been right there contacting as well. Contacting the USDA. I mean, he's done that since November, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions for the administrator? Moving on to finance report.
The finance report is in the packet. I did want to make one note in there. I realized under medical examiner, it's a budget adjustments are requested in the packet for your review. They will be in there next time, or I was even asking Matt about maybe bringing them to the next business meeting. They just got left out.
Any questions? All right, number 14 is the veterans report. Kareem?
We all know how I am with my back to people. Good evening, everybody. For the month of June, I had 164 contacts with veterans. It was down a little bit, but that's not unusual for June with people on vacations, things like that. We had an increase from May to June in the veterans' benefits of $100,204.99 for a total of $2,966,843.91 since I've been here. That is huge revenue that's coming back into this county each and every month. We had no applications for Soldiers Relief for the trust fund. Gearing up for the fair, we're ready to go. And we have moved where our booth is at. We're no longer under the grandstand. We are in the very first building now. So we pulled out from under there. It was getting just a little bit too political. And so we moved to the very first building. Does anybody have questions?
That's a good move.
Thank you. Got a little rough last year for whatever reason. So, we have a lot of high school kids that are helping out at the booth this year, which is good because, correct, they have to have volunteer credit hours, to graduate from some of the schools. So, we're gonna be using some of them to cover some of our hours. We have county employees that has also volunteered to cover some of our hours, which is very good.
Any questions for Kareem?
Thank you.
County partners.
Hello, Corey Blyvis from Cass County Conservation District. I'm the Soil Erosion and Sediment Control Administrator. And I just finished the 159th permit for the year today, and have about 25 that are ready to get working on. So I'm sure that we'll hit over our 200 mark for this fiscal year. So we've been busy since I got my wetland certification this spring. I have been focusing on some wetland projects and have a different perspective on handling those and getting out to view the sites more. I am trying to, since I'm doing more of just soil erosion sediment control, I'm trying to get out and do the initial inspections when needed. I use the GIS maps, the wonderful maps that Erica provides me, and I provide those to the landowners as well, but sometimes you just have to get out there and see the sites. So we're doing that. I also have had some problems with farm erosion, and so we're working on that with NRCS and with the state of Michigan, trying to help some farmers with erosion, changing and erosion controls, and we're going to have to send violations from Part 91 on that. It's also Part 31 violation in some cases, so we try to not have to do that if we can. So I really want to work with the farmers on the front end, and would love for them to come into us first instead of us having to send a violation letter out. So just want to get that out there, and maybe MSU Extension can help us out with that too. The other thing I wanted to mention is that I am a nature nerd, according to the Southwest Michigan Land Conservancy. And we are partners with their Lake LaGrange Valley project. I have extra posters that we need to get around the community because they're starting the fundraising project. They want to purchase about 450-something acres of land around the Lake LaGrange. I'm excited about it because there are some endangered species, threatened and endangered species that would be protected. It's a lot of wetlands that's going to be protected in our community if this is able to be purchased. And they're going to work on removing the Phragmites, the invasive species Phragmites that you see when you go down M62 and past Lindy's restaurant. That's all you can see, right? So it will be a fully different look if they're actually able to do that, and we'll have a more diverse and high-quality wetland area.
Cool.
I'm pretty darn excited about it.
Yeah.
There is a hike that Ron Gunn is organizing. It's a fundraiser on July 29th. I have flyers about that as well. I have a little homework assignment because I really wanted to play the video. I sent a note today. One of the things I've been doing with that wetland stuff is having to look up wetland plants. And so my go-to resource has been the Lady Bird Johnson Wildlife Flower Center because they tell me exactly what I need to see.
Wow.
And there's an 8-minute video. If you look at their, go to the Lady Bird Johnson Wildflower Center website. 8-minute video, and tell me that you're not going to be moved by the fact that we are the generations since then that need to protect and restore and preserve our natural resources and beautify our roadsides. And take a look. I really wish I could have shown it to you, but I'm not that tech savvy, and I got to it today just a little bit before.
Don't go nowhere.
Any questions for me about other things that I might be working on?
Yes, ma'am. On the corner of Wilbur Hill and I can't think. Hampshire. There were 15 years ago. There were pigs right there. You know, right at the bottom of the hill. You know, because the farmer had pigs. But when they stopped, or whenever it was, when they stopped allowing pigs to be outside, you had to move the pigs inside. Everybody here knows how pigs rut and what. It got classified as a wetland because that's where the pigs were always rutting around. So when I first became commissioner 2.5 years ago, the farmer that owns that property asked me to look into that, and we did. And I've been there 13 years. I've never seen any water there because it's impossible to have water there. And he's got a little square about as big as this room that he cannot plant on, or he'll get fined beyond his means. I was told that was going to be re-looked at by somebody else. Can you look into that?
I can take a look. Now, Mike Stickle through NRCS and the USDA Service Center, he was just out doing wetland classifications, double checking those wetland lines, because that's all part of.
Yeah, there's no way water can be where they have it classified as a wetland. It's impossible.
Can you give me that information?
I will do
I
that.
take a look, I'll talk to Mike, because really, they're the ones that are gonna have to
I'll even take a
change that
picture of it.
classification.
It's on like a 30-degree slope.
Right.
If water gets there, we got other issues.
Sure. Water, wetland, soil types, plant life, so there's different, there's different factors involved, but we can take a look at it.
I will get with you after the meeting.
Any other questions? Thanks, Cory.
Thank you.
Any other county partners? All right, moving on to elected officials. Who would like to go first? Monica wins the race. She had her hand up first, sorry.
I don't have a report, I just have a request after hearing Administrator Newton give the report on the historic courthouse. I have been searching for a location in response to Proposal 3 and the requirements for early voting. And if you are working on meeting space and requirements, I have not been able to find a location. So if I could be included in those meetings, that could be very helpful and solve a lot of problems for local clerks and for myself.
Okay.
Thank you.
How much does it have to, how many people can be in it? What's your set?
We don't have exact requirements, but we don't have anything, if I could have something here at the county, it definitely needs to be bigger than the Kingelow room. It has to have secure storage space. It has to have locking capabilities. It has to have certain technological capabilities, and I can get all of those.
I think our biggest accommodating space that's proposed is gonna be right about 100 people, and that'll be the chambers.
Over there.
I can get all that information and
If you could send me what you have and
keep my fingers crossed, and if
Yeah.
we could do something, that would be fabulous.
What's the start date on that, Monica?
Any
2024?
state and February election, so the first one will be the February 27th presidential primary.
Okay.
That room's not gonna work in February.
No. 27, 24, okay.
Is that all you have?
Yes.
Any
thank
other
you.
questions for Monica?
Thank you, Monica.
Next up?
Couple of items. One was touched on about the medical examiner's budget. As of June 30th, there have been 87 medical examiner investigations in the county. We budget for 91.
Wow.
So that's one of the issues. There have been 26 postmortem examinations. Those can vary from $600 to $2,600 depending on the type of examination that was taking place. But each one of those examinations carry a $250 transport permit with it. We used to have 8 or 9 of them a year, but now we're going into some new rules with Western Michigan University, so on how they do this, and they've been named our medical examiners, so we have to follow their rules. So just gives you kind of a shell of what that means and why we're at where we're at. I reported to you back in January, although we had like, I think it was 7 postmortem examinations in 1 month, and then it kind of died off that term, but it kind of went down after that.
Pardon the pun.
And it's climbed back up. So last month, as a matter of fact, there were 4 postmortem examinations with 14 medical examiner investigations. Secondly, this past week, we had an issue with the security system in the jail. I've been telling you that the security system is 23 years old, and we need to update or upgrade it. We had a server go down that took out half the cameras in the facility. We were running blind for a while until Cornerstone, the company who bought out the company who put in our system, made it down to make a fix to get us back in service, but they are saying that we are on borrowed time. Lastly, I'd like to just have Ron Butts come and talk about an incident they had a couple weeks ago regarding an animal hoarder and what he experienced with that, and the luck we had with Marion County helping us out.
Good afternoon. It's been some exciting times at the animal shelter here this summer. As Sheriff stated, we encountered a hoarding situation last month where we seized over 107 animals from one residence in Howard Township. This ranged anywhere from dogs, cats, goats, chickens, ducks, rabbits. Wow.
And a crab.
Yeah.
Snakes, mice, and a crab, yes. And that tasked the shelter with quite a few different resources that we've not had to encounter before, i.e. the crustaceans and the snake. We've got a great working partnership with Berrien County Sheriff's Office and the Animal Control Division to where they were able to house the livestock for us, whereas the remaining animals were housed in our shelter. The shelter has been very full this summer. The kennels, dog kennels are averaging over 30% over capacity. That's on average 10 dogs over that we're trying to move around on a daily basis to try to accommodate cleaning and sanitation to the requirements that the state asked us to do. Sorry. We've had some exciting changes with that along the way. Our shelter veterinarian has taken on a new veterinarian whose specialty is in shelter medicine. The project that I've had kind of as a bucket list item for the last 6.5 years finally came to fruition here last month, to where we're now providing next level care for our shelter animals, to where we have a veterinarian coming in Monday afternoons, sometimes with a tech, depending on how many animals that they need to see and treat. Veterinarians providing full wellness exams for these animals, also vaccinating both rabies, 5-way vaccines, as well as Bordetella, which is the kennel cough. I'm glad this is finally happening now, because we've had earlier this year, the shelters had to be locked down on 3 different occasions from parvovirus as well as kennel cough. Because of the mild winter, we were seeing parvovirus at a much earlier and much higher rate, to where staff members, including myself, are treating animals in-house, where now we have a veterinarian that's able to oversee us in-house with managing these treatments. So that's been a huge win for the animals of the shelter, which also has it helped us with our transfer partners. We're over 26 agencies across 3 different states, as well as working with the Bissell Pet Foundation, with the National Animal Shelters Director, to help us with resources that we need for animal placements. To where just this afternoon, right before the meeting, I returned back to shelter transferring 6 animals up to Kalamazoo to help take some of the load off the excess dogs that we have in the kennel. With this case of 107 animals that we've had, it's tasked staff members as well as our resources to be able to provide the adequate care for these animals, to where I'm pulling officers off the road for cleaning procedures, because it's an all-day event when we have 40 to 50 dogs in the building at times. So it's very tasking for that. We've been fortunate and very blessed with our community with the amount of support that we have from not only monetary donations, but supply donations. On average, on a bleach day, we'll consume over 7 gallons of bleach.
Oh, wow.
If anybody knows, because of COVID, what the cost of bleach is, that's increased drastically, and we still have our loyal residents that come in on a weekly or bi-weekly basis and bring in a carload of bleach, so that's helped us. I can't always rely on those donations, but I'm grateful for the amount of amazing donations that they provide. And because of the community support that we've had for the 3rd year in a row, I'm happy to report we're operating over at a 90% live release rate of all of our animals that we take in, even including the surplus of stray animals that aren't being reclaimed, the increase on owner surrenders, as well as these large animal cases that we're having to deal with. So, thank you.
Thank you. Wow.
Who would like to go next? Go ahead, Judge Beal.
I didn't know if anybody had their hand behind me, so I was looking. I just wanted to really thank Manny De La Rosa. He came out and did an active shooter intruder response training at the courts and in our building rather, and then he's been doing some follow-up meetings in our individual department areas, and it's been really informative and really good for employee morale because it makes them feel like they understand the situation a little better. And we've learned a lot of things with him looking at some of our doors and different things, the way they lock, etc. Things that we took for granted. Some of our doors, the locks are on them backwards, so that if we were coming out of the courtroom, you would think we'd be able to like lock it one way, and actually the locks are backwards as far as what he told us. So we'll be following up on some of those things. So it's just helpful having a new set of eyes look at things, because you never want a bad situation to happen, but it's good to be prepared. He's also planning on following up with us at some point and doing a drill, and so that I think will be really helpful too, because we can talk about all these things all we want, but we actually have to practice a little bit. And we found out a lot last year when he came out and did some emergency drills for fire and that sort of thing. So it's just really helpful. So we just really want to thank him and the person that came out with him doing training. And I just wanted to then secondly mention, just, we had an adoption today for a child that had been in care for over 7 years. And it was wonderful because I counted in the audience over 35 community members. And we just live in a really great community, so I know we have to talk about a lot of heavy topics, but, you know, that he's 16 years old now, he spent 7 of his years of his life in care, and to see the smile on his face, being adopted, and all the support he had from the community. And I know a lot of you people provide the same kind of support, but I just wanted to bring that up because, you know, that's just really heartwarming to see that, so thank you.
Thank you, Carol.
Drain Commissioner, Treasurer? Both good? Wow, that should conclude all the electeds we have in our presence. Number 17, unfinished business.
None.
None. Moving on to 18. Item A is appointments. So I guess I'll read them off, or would Roseanne, do you want to do it since that's your committee?
No, it's not my committee.
It's not, you're right, you're not on
It's
that
Joyce's
anymore.
committee.
Who would like to read the stuff from appointments?
Okay, Joyce, you're on.
Appointments. We have approval of appointments of Bruce Stack to the Central Dispatch Authorities as representative for the Cass County Fire Chief Association. Appointment of Barbara Ballard to the Solid Waste Planning Committee to a term expiring June 30th, 2025. An appointment of Mary Howie to the Historic Commission to a term expiring July 1st, 2026.
Any discussion?
Pretty straightforward.
I move, we move this on to the regular meeting on, what's the date of the August meeting?
The first meeting of
Oh,
August.
it's the 10th. It's the 10th.
Yeah,
To
so
the meeting on
we're
August
postponing
10th.
the fair.
Yeah.
It's the Thursday after the fair.
Okay.
All right, we've got a motion.
Support.
With support, no discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Do we need motions for the committee of the whole, or
We
just
got
an agreement? All right.
We do it just because.
All right.
Item B is the opioid settlement funds use and planning. Matt, you want to run with that?
Yeah. So, we've had a couple different instances where with the settlements from opioid funding, we've gone back to, I think it's about 2 years ago now, I think. There's been, I think, the distributor settlement, we had the Janssen settlement, and there's been a couple different, I think there was, most recently there was some involving Teva and Walmart, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but, with a lot of those, you're looking at a settlement period of approximately, I think it's over the next 8 years. There was a few of the organizations that actually elected to accelerate some of those. So we ended up, for this year, or currently right now, we have approximately $246,849.47 in proceeds. Now there's restrictions on what you can use the opioid settlement funds for. We're working through that now. And right now, we would anticipate proceeds through 2031 to be approximately $978,425.05. And I think actually there was another finalization of another settlement agreement that might increase that a little bit. I think it'd be closer to 1.2 when we're all said and done. So with that in mind, we had two things we wanted to talk about. First was Sobriety Month will occur in September. Judge Beeler reached out to me, and as part of Sobriety Month, there was an idea of looking at hosting a family night at the drive-in theater and having food as well. It would be open to all families of Cass County. Family-friendly movie would be shown, good avenue for supporting family fun, or sober family fun. It's also be sponsored by Woodlands. I think this is a really good use of those funds for something that's not too expensive. I think we were looking at a ballpark figure of roughly $2,500 to $3,500. What we would see is, maybe potentially if the board was agreeable to this, maybe approve for the expense up to $3,500, and then if it comes in lower, obviously we wouldn't expend that, that would stay in the fund. And then the other part of this is, I know a lot of counties are starting to look at forming, whether it's a task force or an ad hoc committee of sorts, to look at the funds that are available now and then the funds coming into the future and say, what would be a good use for this? Typically, the committees are comprised of your your chief judge, the sheriff, representatives from your behavioral health care networks. We would have county finance, administration, and then I think we were also looking at 2 commissioners potentially. There was a suggestion tonight of looking at the education system. That's actually a pretty good one. I hadn't considered that, but
Yeah.
maybe that's something worth looking at as well. You know, with the idea being that, you know, for those funds that are going to be coming over the next 7 to 8 years, how do we want to spend that? And what would be a good use of those where we can have a big impact on how the community is going to feel? You know, something maybe different than what we've done throughout the past. So kind of 2 items on there. One would be that sobriety event and whether that could go forward. And the other one would be looking at the creation of a committee for next month.
So, first, remember when we first got the ARPA funds? Me and you were on that committee.
Yes, we were.
And weren't you there also? I don't know, that was before your time. So, the elephant in the room with the ARPA funds was, why didn't you all use that money for this, or for this, or for this, or for this? You know, which made the rumor mill. And whatever we do, we have to absolutely make public all those restrictions and requirements for that, where that funding can go and where it cannot go, so we don't revisit the ARPA fiasco, you know, because that was terrible. And people were using that as a weapon for us. Then I agree with the committee and with the 2 commissioners. I'd volunteer to be on that. Then my third thing is, you said a family-friendly movie. Who's going to be the approving authority for that? Because these days that could be anything. That could be anything, and you know what I mean.
Yeah, I mean, we would not want it to be controversial.
Oh, boy.
This idea was, I mean, doing the event together was started by Woodlands, and then we've also got some other people that have expressed interest in being a part of it. It would have to be something G-rated, I'm sure. And so I don't know. I mean, certainly we could involve, you know, the county administrator and whatever. We have a very small committee right now working on it, because first we have to see if we can afford to do it. Secondly, we have to figure out the logistics, because actually the 5 Mile Drive-In just recently sold. But my court administrator was able to talk to them, and they were really excited about the idea of doing a community event. So I think they'll work with us, but it's just seeing what we can afford to do, and because also it's not just the kind of movie, but the license that we'd have to buy. So it's not gonna be something like yesterday's movie that just got released, because we won't be able to afford that license, but.
Yeah.
So it would be something, probably an older movie.
Yeah, and it's what they have available on film,
Yes.
too.
Right.
And it's
Right.
whatever they can get, so, if the commissioners wanted to have, you know, some kind of a input on that, but we definitely would stay away from trying to create any controversy, but.
As long, because if we're paying for it some kind of way,
I would say as long as Matt knows about it, I'm good with
Yeah,
Matt.
I mean,
Yeah.
all agencies will have the same impetus to not want
Right.
it to be
Nobody's
something
gonna put it in.
controversial. but-
yeah.
Too wild up there.
Because these,
I can't tell you right now what that list looks like, because we haven't even gotten details from the 5 Mile, and it's basically on what's available to them, so, because we can't just take a movie there and say, show it.
Right.
right. Let's play a good Michigan football game. when they beat Notre Dame, that's what we need to show.
Well, you know.
Does anybody have any other questions?
You know, sports triggers a lot of non-sobriety events.
Right, yeah, you're right. Shot down again, Jeremiah.
Do we have any further discussion?
Just that, I took that webinar, and actually, there's a series of them, and the next one is some Friday in August. It's always Friday between 12 and 1 o'clock. And so I'm happy to serve on that committee as another commissioner. So I'm just.
So do we want to name it an ad hoc committee or a task
I'm just
force?
volunteering.
That was, I guess, the question, to figure out what
We're going to name it an ad hoc
stance was.
committee or a task force?
Well, that has its indications too, if it's a committee or a task force. I think a task force would be
Absolutely, but I
better.
mean, they're both gonna achieve the same thing, but if it's an ad hoc committee, the chairman can just choose 2 commissioners to be on it. We don't have to vote on it or anything else.
Oh, let's just do that.
And if they both volunteered and nobody else has volunteered, that'd be the simplest way to do it.
I've got time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
As long as nobody's opposed to that.
But you want it.
I'm not necessarily opposed, I have been looking for a new committee assignment.
Hey, let them have it. I'm on enough.
Besides that, he's got little kids too, so.
Yeah.
So,
Nobody's opposed to those two, then we can push it forward
Push
to
it
the
forward
next
to
meeting
the-
to vote
yeah.
on
Okay.
formally. Is there any other discussion pertaining to either of those two items? Everybody's in agreement pushing them
Yes.
forward?
Yep.
All right, they'll be on the next agenda then.
Commissioners Barrera and Martinetti.
Correct. All right, item C is the blight elimination program, round 3 and 4.
That, I'm on the land bank, but Hope's gonna talk on that. She can do a better job than me.
I'll be happy to. So we have a couple of programs that our Cass County Land Bank is very busy with right now. Both of them are on the agendas tonight because we have asks from the Board of Commissioners for both. We'll start with the Blight Elimination Program. At the most recent Board of Commissioners meeting, I delivered an update on the successful implementation of rounds 1 and 2. And today our focus shifts to the exciting developments of round 3 and 4. In round 3, we have been awarded a substantial $500,000 for the Cass County, for the entire county of Cass. Currently, potential projects are under review in several townships and villages, including Howard Township, Jefferson Township, Silver Creek Township, Calvin Township, Village of Cass, Pokagon Township, Village of Vandalia, Village of Marcellus, and the Village of Edwardsburg. This round must adhere to all federal requirements for state and local fiscal recovery funds. Once the funds are accepted, we will receive a grant agreement from the State Land Bank Authority. With this in place, we'll be able to move forward and submit actual grant applications for each project. And the deadline for pre-approval of those proposals is set for March of 2024. While all this is happening, the State Land Bank is releasing round 4. It is a competitive round. The deadline for submitting proposals for that round is set for December 1st of 2023. So all awards for that round will be announced in February of 2024. These are great opportunities to improve our local economy by facilitating productive reuse of land or enhancing current properties. In order to help you guys maybe keep in your mind the difference between these two programs, I do have a handout on the blight elimination funding, what each round is about and where we're at with each round. So if you, I'd be happy to share that with you. You can keep that handout. So my ask from you is to get your support in the round 3 and round 4 application for blight elimination for the county land bank.
Any questions for her? Okay, everybody's in agreement of pushing that forward, then we'll do
Yes,
so?
yes,
Absolutely.
Okay.
yeah.
And then, does anybody have any protest to her staying up and taking care of item F, the added
No,
item?
no, I think that's a
Are you
great
prepared to
idea.
do that, or would you like to take,
I think that's a great idea. Yeah.
just trying to save you some time?
Certainly. So now we'll switch gears to the My Hope program. We were presented with our fake check last week of $500,000 for energy efficiency upgrades for homeowners in Cass County. And to keep that one separate from what we've already discussed, I also brought you each a pamphlet for the My Hope program, which I think I may have given you before, but nonetheless, I'm going to help you to be separate. So, of course, in round 2, Cass County Land Bank Authority was awarded $500,000. This program does not move fast, just so you know. The money doesn't have to be spent until 2026. We are still building up the infrastructure, all the policies and procedures in order to be able to review applications from our homeowners. Right now, homeowners are applying to MSHDA. I know in Cass County we have 57 applications received so far, but that's not all for just Cass County, because we know the Village of Cass received $300,000 in round 1, and they applied again in round 3 and got another almost $200,000. And the City of Dowagiac also applied in round 2, received $300,000, and they're also going to apply for funds in round 4. So we're looking at a significant impact that this program is going to make in Cass County. Again, it's, for those who don't know, it's for energy efficiency home improvements. It's grant dollars, no liens. It's free money for homeowners who qualify. And they do have to have a COVID-related hardship, but as Mishta has said, everybody had a COVID-related hardship because expenses have increased for everyone. So you just have to check that you had an increase in expenses or a decrease in income that is related to COVID. Our goal here for our program in the county is to focus on rehabbing our aging housing stock, assisting elderly residents to age in place, helping our veterans who are in need of energy efficiency upgrades, and there are a lot that Korea gets. We work pretty closely together with those things, and making home repairs possible for residents on a fixed income. What kind of projects can they get help with? Roofs, windows, storm doors, electrical upgrades and replacements, exterior doors, insulation, furnaces, cooling and ventilation systems, water heaters, upgrades to Energy Star rated stoves, refrigerators, dishwashers. So my ask of you today is for your support in us applying for round 4. The administration office has been a blessing to the land bank, and they helped with round 2 application. They have agreed to help us with the round 4 application. We don't have to recreate the wheel, which is the good news. But nonetheless, it is a lot of work, and I certainly appreciate their assistance with that.
Good.
Hope, just for clarification, we got this late to where it was added to the agenda like late, so it wasn't because you all were beating down the door always, and that check was just awarded to us. That's why this was late coming on the agenda, is we had a couple of questions on why the addition to it was no fault of anybody in this county, because you all have been on the phone like they have.
Yeah, and one of the things we didn't know until we had our land bank meeting on Monday was, can we get more than $500,000? That $500,000 was the limit for round 2. And we had to get clarification that that was only the limit for just that. We can actually apply for an additional $500 in another round. We got that clarification on Tuesday, so here we are on Thursday.
Thank you.
To apply.
Thank you.
Any other questions for her? Everybody's good, we'll push it to the next agenda?
Yep.
All right, that's what we'll do.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving to item D. I'm not sure how everybody wants to start this off, but it's the MERS.
I would make a motion that we establish a MERS committee to look at the grievances that was listed in the summary, and also to look at the cost. And as we've been dealing with Matt and what he said, I think it was at the last meeting, that we might want to look at another DC plan that's at 5%. I don't think we need another DC plan. I think we need to look at what we got and make it affordable to the county and also agreeable to our employees.
Are you done so I can finish what I was saying?
Yes, sir.
As I was previously saying, I'm not sure everybody wants to handle it, if we would like the people that presented the letter to open discussion, or how anybody wants to move about. Anybody have any preference? So if you guys would like to start off, finishing with your motion, go right ahead.
I make that motion.
Not really, motion's not really necessary. We're just gonna move it forward to the.
I make a motion that we move this to.
Yeah.
There's a motion on the floor.
I have a motion to establish a MERS committee. Okay.
Oh.
Yep.
Second, okay.
Motion on the floor with support. Is there any discussion?
Yeah. So the MERS committee, how did that happen? How did this come about?
The grievances that there was, actually ever since that I started my tour here, I've been listening to the grievances on the DC plan. And I've been meeting with some folks on the DC plan. And so we came up with, okay, let's list your grievances down in a summary, and then let's see if we can get it to committee so that we can discuss those grievances. But at the same manner, we're listening to Matt here, and one comment that he made to me is that I don't know how the county can afford this DC plan. And then on another one, he's saying, okay, we need to probably look at another DC plan where there's all new employees are coming in at 5%. Well, I think that as we go to committee, we can sit down and intelligently look at this and discuss it and see if we can come up with a good plan that's for everybody, across the board.
Not
Yeah,
just,
you gotta define everybody.
Yeah.
We've got union groups and everything else.
That's what I meant, everybody, union groups and the whole ball.
We have union groups that negotiate.
Right, I understand that.
yeah.
So in order to change anything, you have to make sure they
Right,
agree to
no, I,
negotiate again.
no, I understand that, I understand that.
I've got a discussion point if you're
Yeah,
finished.
go ahead.
Where did you guys get your facts that you had drawn together in your letter that you sent to Matt? Your numbers specifically?
Can you answer that for us, please? Yes,
You want me to speak?
yes.
Okay. What facts exactly are you looking at?
The number of non-union employees, non-union, non-elected employees. The letter was stated there was 20 to 25, I think that's what the number was drawn in the letter. There's actually 45 non-union employees.
47.
47.
47, excuse me. And then we have non-union employees that work in other buildings than apparently the building that you talked to employees in. They weren't contacted, so that's another question that we have. Referring to the different groups keeping their DB, those groups negotiated to keep their DB until the percentages reached a trigger event. Once they reach a trigger event, then they go to DC. Let's see, what else did I have? Sorry, I'm just going off a couple of quick things that people asked me to make sure we highlighted and got clarification on. The letter stated the county's 79.4% funded. According to the actuarial dated 12/31 of 22, we're 82% funded in the DB. I had one other point I wanted to make, sorry. It states in the letter, the non-union employees were the only group that were restricted from the negotiation process and only group that was forced into the DC plan. Non-union employees were provided with several opportunities to share concerns and were provided with information from the county as well as directly from MERS. The sheriff's office had several employee groups that transitioned to the MERS DC plans: command officers, corrections sergeants, corrections officers, and clerks, animal control dispatch, road sergeants, and the sheriff's group consisting of the sheriff, the undersheriff, and the sheriff's secretary. The road deputies and detectives negotiated to keep the MERS DB plan, but it has a percentage trigger to freeze and transition to a DC plan. Also true with the courts and non-courts CCIEA agreement. And that's all I have for my discussion points. If anybody else has anything?
She was gonna answer your first question.
Yes, go ahead, sorry.
That number was not provided as, there's no official non-union group. This is just individuals who are part of the non-union employees within Cass County that are asking that it be reconsidered. This, any of the information was not presented on all of the non-union employees as a whole because it's not a group per se. So the number came from the emails that had gone out with the proposals and the decisions by the Board of Commissioners and the people who are interested in revisiting that issue. But like I said, this isn't on behalf of the non-unions in whole because there is no official group. So that's where that number came from.
So that would explain why only some of the people in that specific area want to talk about switching it back and some people weren't contacted.
I don't know if other people reached out, quite frankly, since we're not a group, we don't have to come to an agreement if we decide to speak with commissioners. We're individual employees with individual needs. We're just representing ourselves. If somebody wants myself to reach out to everyone, that's something I would put the time and energy into, but like I said, it's not it was treated as a group as a whole, but I don't know if everybody wants to fight this or not, and I don't know if anyone has brought it up or back.
And that's another thing that I would say that the committee we could, as a committee, we can get a hold of everybody. As a committee, not as just me and the three of us here, or or the 8 of us, or whatever, or the 25 of us, but as a committee, we can contact everybody and say, okay, this is on the table, do you want to be in it, out of it? I mean, if.
So what happens when you get 15 people that want it and 30 people or 35 people that don't? How do you make a decision then?
Well, then obviously, we can't make a decision because the majority of the people don't want it, don't want to go on.
And having this committee, it'll be fact-finding, okay? We'll be able to get more information in, get more knowledgeable about it, have some input from the affected employees. There are employees that are upset, and I feel like it's our responsibility when there is an employee upset, or even like a resident of our townships, we have to help. And especially with employees. If we have employees that aren't happy about a decision that was made that they did not want, we should form this committee as a fact-finding, and maybe we can come to some resolve. Maybe we might find some information that like, oh, well, yeah, some information we didn't know. It's not gonna hurt to form the committee and have discussions. Not at all. I mean, this may not work. It may work to our advantage. We might find something that's fantastic. But I think it would be to our advantage to have a committee just for the discussion of it.
Can I talk?
Nobody's opposed to it. We've got a motion on the floor. We're in the middle of discussion on the motion. If nobody's opposed to Matt talking, then I suppose he can talk.
Well, I mean, I can tell you in terms of research, this has been a topic that we've been talking about since before 2020, right? And I can tell you that previous administration, not myself specifically throughout all of it, but previous administration and the board had worked with MERS and has researched this issue extensively. The transition that came up was from those, was based on that research and those discussions. MERS met with employees and elected officials and all of us multiple times and talked about this. $593,000 was paid out in transition bonuses. If you implement any sort of a change back to the DB, there's no recovery of that cost. When I talked to MERS and asked about this, they said that no one across the state, no one has ever done this, where you would implement a transition and move back with less than a year or within a year. It's unprecedented. I don't know if that's the kind of precedent we want to set. When you start looking at the MERS costs, yes, we've had some legacy debt cost. Part of that reason is the unfunded liability. At one point, it was $12 million. And that's assuming that we had a 7% rate of return. If that rate of return actually turned out to be lower in the coming years, that could have ballooned up to somewhere in the ballpark of about $20 million. Yes, our funded percentage has increased. Our unfunded liability has decreased. That's because of the freezes that were put in place. There is no way, according to MERS, you cannot just unfreeze a DB and restart the accruals as if the freeze never happened. And if we were to undo this, we would end up in the same boat as you were in before, having paid out over $500,000 in bonuses and still looking at an accrued, an unfunded liability that's going to go back up again. It really, from the administration standpoint, we wouldn't advocate for this. In terms of the elected officials, there was a long series of meetings that took place between representatives from the Board of Commissioners and the elected officials in discussing and ultimately presenting a plan for the non-union employees. That culminated last month. So the idea is that you're not overinflating increases or decreases that happen. It sort of smooths out that curve over time. What they'll tell you is that as of December 31st, the actuarial value, so what they're listing here is actually 116% of the market value. So in fact, they're overestimating that based on the smoothing ratio. So the net effect of the funded ratio, if you were to evaluate as of the market rate right now, would actually be 71%. So there is a lot of variability that comes in with this. And I think it's important that we consider that. with the meetings, I mean, there were several different meetings that all non-union employees were invited to before the transition happened. With respect to this, administration or HR were not consulted. We would have been happy to try to help coordinate some of this or talk about this. In terms of non-unions and bargaining, I mean, I can tell you that if you look at the National Labor Relations Act, it excludes positions, particularly supervisors, persons in managerial positions, would not be able to unionize anyway. And so there's a reason why some of those positions are non-union, because they inherently have to be. This idea that we've seen significant exodus related to this, we aren't seeing that bearing out in the data either. We've had, since December 22, I think we've had 6 non-union employees that left the county. Of those 6, one was a law clerk, a 2-year term for that position ended. 2 employees moved, one in-state, one out-of-state. 2 retired and have been communicating and planning with HR for a year in advance. 1 left due to departmental restructuring and management changes. There were 4 more that left between January and March. 3 have been planned retirements. 1 resigned after 3 years and moved to the Grand Rapids area. So we really aren't seeing this exodus of long-term employees that is being detailed here. I mean, that's not to say that people necessarily may not have some frustration, but I think this was a long process, a momentous decision by the Board of Commissioners, and I would just caution everyone that you should not undo something like that lightly. I mean, this was all done as a long stage of planning, and it really doesn't make sense, I think, to reopen this again. The DC plan is beneficial to employees. We talked about new hires. Part of the reason is because of that ratio and the vesting percentage and what was done for existing employees. The idea is, as new employees come in, does it make sense to offer the same thing? The idea there is about trying to take care of our existing employees and looking at future costs for new employees coming in. It's not about having to adjust anything with respect to existing employees. We're trying to do that right now. It's really about how do we control costs into the future. And the policy committee is going to be looking at that the next policy committee meeting as well. That's what I wanted to interject.
So this committee, the way Matt's talking and the way a lot of people are talking is if they start a committee, we're going to instantly do something. But what you all are trying to do is
Get some information.
just informational only.
Everything that's already been done in the process before we made the decision.
Before they were here though, because they
Yeah, I
weren't
understand
privy to all that.
We can't keep spending money and reliving things we've hashed out in the past and we've already made decisions on.
Carol's got her hand up.
Is everybody okay with somebody from the audience speaking during discussion of the motion?
Yes.
Yes.
Sorry, just gotta check with everybody.
And I guess I'm not understanding, I thought at the cow we all got to weigh in, but it's because there's a motion on
It's
the
a
floor.
live motion on the floor.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, I was not understanding, because I thought this was just a discussion item, I didn't know it was a motion. But I understand, so do you want me to wait until after you?
No,
do the
everybody's okay with
motion?
you speaking, so go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, I guess, the elephant in the room, like the chair likes to talk about, the elephant in the room is this whole process with MERS. It makes it sound like there was a decision made 3 years ago by the commissioners, and now we're trying to undo that decision, and that's not the way things transpired. And it's fine if people want to disagree, but I stand by the fact that no decision was made 3 years ago. There was a journey that occurred, and there was participation by various people in that journey, and we had discussions and everything. But I guess what I would just like to say is, there's been so many discussions, even after this happened, about what could or couldn't be done about our future with our retirement, et cetera. And I guess, as a person who, for a living, looks at facts and then makes decisions, I wonder why we wouldn't have, some fact finding about what is the current situation, what are the possibilities. Saying that nobody else in the state has switched to a DC and then gone back, I didn't even know it was really on the table to go back. I thought it was to look and see what are the options for where we're currently at this point in time. And I know that we've informally amongst ourselves discussed, I don't know if what we've done currently with the DC is sustainable over the long term, and I'm not speaking for anyone else in this room, but I'm saying at the rates we're paying. So it would be good to have somebody that had some actuarial knowledge and some knowledge about these things to be able to say, okay, this is where you're at now, maybe these are some options for the future, and to start exploring them, because if we keep waiting to explore these things when the problem is right on our doorstep, we don't really have a game plan for what's going on here. And that's the way it transpired with the whole switch from the MERS DV to the DC. So I guess I'm not sure what's gonna be done to address the current state of everything that is present, but I just wanted to say too, in the letter it talks about the judges having DP plans, which are maintained by the state, and that's not correct. We have DCs. So I wanted to be sure the record was correct about that. We do not have DBs provided by the state of Michigan. So I don't know what the long-term plan is gonna be about what our benefits are for people, but I know there have been conversations since the adoption of the transition about, oh, could we go back? And that MERS has given information to employees about, oh yeah, it's possible. Well, just because something is quote-unquote possible doesn't mean it's truly possible. It's possible for me to buy $1 million mansion, but I don't have the money to do it. But somebody would tell me that's a possibility. So I'm just saying, like, it feels like we need to get some information lined up that's information, so that then everybody could be on the same page about some of this, because the information that's reported that was shared with everyone, a lot of that, there was not a lot of information shared. A lot of the things that we were told about the specific savings that would happen, they didn't pan out the way they were presented. Other things happened that were good, and I'm not saying it was all bad, it's just, there was never an exchange of information, and maybe some of the other elected officials want to weigh in, but the way it's being presented in hindsight, like for 3 years, we shared all this information and we came to an agreement about it, it really was, that's not really what happened. So I just wanted to say, I support what's trying to be done here as far as figuring out what's occurred, where are we at now, and where are we going, because it's important for the health of our whole organization, so that then all these sideline and backdoor conversations can stop, and we can know what the reality of the situation is, and then people will have to make decisions. Do they stay, do they go, what's going to happen? Because we can't keep rehashing this for the next 10 years. It's not going to go well if we do, for anyone that's concerned. And so that's my comment.
Thank you. Commissioner Marquetti, go ahead.
I have a question that I don't know who can answer it, maybe Jennifer, or maybe you, Matt. But what currently is our assumed rate of return? Currently, what is that? 7%? 7.25%? What is it?
From the actuarial, it's 7%, right?
It was, I'm not for sure though, we can pull the actuarial, but I think they were doing some.
The smooth actual rate of return 2022 is 3.51, while the actual market rate of return was 10.61.
Okay, so that's.
So the average is to 7.
Okay, so what I want to say is this. When I became a commissioner, we had a $2 million accrued liability.
What year was that?
Unaccrued liability. That was in 2011.
2011, the accrued was 4.122599.
It was $2 million. That's just what I said. It was $2 million.
No, I got it at 4 million.
Okay, all right, so 4 million, all right. I thought it was 2, okay. So, but the point I'm trying to make is that when I became a commissioner and it was $4 million, it did give me cause for concern. However, that was in 2011. We were still getting past 2008 when the bottom fell out, okay? So, and our rate of return, assumed rate of return at that time was 8%. And when the commissioners, way before me, decided to go with MERS, that was supposed to be that was the interest rate we would get on the money that we gave them. Okay, so today, or rather in 2020, wait, I gotta look at that because I got that same thing you do. or was it right before they made these changes? Okay, our unaccrued liability, UAL, was in excess, it was 12.5 million, was in excess of $12 million
In 2020.
in 2020. So for anybody that looks at the market, that looks at any kind of an investment that you make, there's years that you have ups and there's years that you have downs. We never have had an up year. Explain to me why we have never had an up year. I'm like this much in the market, okay? It was terrible in 2008. But by 2012, I had gotten back everything I had invested. Did the county get back that? No. In my estimation, we said to MERS, here's our money, we need you to take care of it for us, and they've done a piss poor job of it. So, in 2020, in 2018, the then chairman said to the administrator, two things that I want you to do. One of them is figure out what to do with the old courthouse. And the second thing is to figure out what to do with MERS. And that was early on, but then 2020 hit. So Carol, in a way, is right in that this hasn't been going on. It's only been really, 2021 was when they started all those meetings. I went to those meetings. They tried to accommodate every single person in those meetings. The people who worked on this so hard, the administrator and the finance director, they didn't do this to hurt anybody or to screw anybody. They did it because they didn't believe, and there were commissioners who at the same time didn't believe that we could continue to have an unfunded liability in excess of $12 million. And I'm telling you right now, today, every single time that, and I went to a lot of MERS conferences, all the times I've been commissioners. So, okay, so our assumed rate of return is now 7%, okay? So every single time they dropped it, the first time they dropped it to 7 3/4. Do you know what that meant? Do you know what that meant when they dropped it? I'm asking out here, do you know what that meant when they dropped it from 8% to 7 3/4? They dropped it a 4%. What did that mean?
Less return.
Okay, what that meant was we had to pay more money. We had to pay more money. So then they dropped it again. And we had to pay more money. And then they dropped it again. So now it's 7%. And I'm telling you right now, if they didn't do what they did, and we know that if they dropped it below 7%, the unaccrued liability would have almost doubled. And today, if we hadn't done what we did, that unaccrued liability would be $15 million, easy. And we never, and there were years when I was a commissioner, and doggone it, I wish there was somebody else here who was a commissioner then. There was years that we gave $40,000, $50,000. We took what we get from the Pokagons. And there was a year when we put that money into MERS.
Revenue sharing.
Right, the local revenue sharing. So it was never, ever intended to hurt anybody. It was intended because we didn't see, they didn't see, and goodness knows what I know about math, you could put in a thimble, but they didn't see a way out of all of those millions of dollars that we were owed. And I went to all of those MERS meetings, and there were people that went, every single time you went to a MERS meeting, MERS never, ever took responsibility for losing all of that money. Ever. All they ever told us to do was, well, you can do this, or you have to pay more, or you... Never did they ever take one iota of responsibility because the money is... And I'm a taxpayer. And I have people who don't even have pensions. That all they have is Social Security. So I'm done. I'm done talking about it. I don't want to talk about
Any
it.
other discussion on the motion? Go ahead.
Just clarify, the motion is to now, right now, form the committee, or the motion is to move it to the Board of Commissioner meeting?
Move it to the Board of Commissioner meeting, right?
Clarify your motion, please.
My motion was to start a MERS committee, to establish a MERS committee to look at the grievances and cost. That was my motion.
That's it. Yeah,
To be voted on right now.
I don't think we can do it.
I think all we do now is move it to be voted on at the next business meeting.
Yep.
Yeah, we can't.
Has
yeah.
there, has a grievance ever been filed? I mean, talk about grievances. Has a grievance been
I
filed?
think he's using the grievance for a different meaning than,
Yes.
yeah, complaint,
Oh,
not a
complaint.
grievance.
Complaint.
Yeah.
So out of 170 employees that we have, how many are complaining?
I have received several emails from different people, from different locations, including the sheriff's department, with concerns about this MERS and the DC plan. Mainly because, and I don't know about you, how you would feel if they switched you over and you lost $1,000 a month. How would you feel? And because, okay, then you start up this MERS and you're giving them 12%, 15%. Do you know how many years it takes them to get back that 1,000? But it takes like 15, 20 years.
Jim, they're not going to get that back. They're not going to get that back. That's because that's a switch, okay?
Okay, but.
And name me a company that hasn't done, a private, public, whatever, that hasn't. You want to know what Berrien County has a DB plan. They don't go through MERS. You want to know what Berrien County's unfunded liability is? It is in excess of $30 million. How in the world are they ever going to make that up?
Well, hopefully, at some point in time, they'll have to start contributing. But we're contributing too. I mean, you're contributing to the DC plan.
I don't
The
agree.
500,000 that they paid out, why couldn't that have been moved to the DB?
The idea with that was to provide, bridge the gap somewhat, with respect to length of service, things like that. That's where those came from. And I can tell you, if we were looking at it from the actuarial report, I think it was actuarial of the numbers from FREMA, from MERS, but for the general unit here, I mean, the ratio from the county that would have been required over the last year would have been 18% versus what ultimately will be 15%. That's ramping up over the next several years, but it would have definitively cost more for the DB in terms of the cost to the county. And I think when you start looking at the budget and how you would approach this, I mean, I think that raises the real concern about how would you ever possibly go back to it.
If there's no further discussion, we'll vote on
Can I
this.
just-
Chair, or Vice Chair, could I have a-
Hold on.
We'll let Mary go first.
I yield to Vic.
Everybody's okay with Vic?
Yep.
Go ahead, please.
I appreciate the chance to talk here. And really, my thought on this, probably multiple thoughts, but is that it would be wise to pass this motion. This motion doesn't say you're going to do anything, doesn't say that you're going to change. It says you're going to look into it. And I think that is a wise thing to do. And I'll tell you why for a couple of reasons. One, again, we want to do what's best for the county, what's best for our bottom line, what's best for our employees. And I think looking at this sends a real message to some employees who, very frankly, I'm just going to be very candid with you. You ask what the employees are thinking. There's a lot of ill will and distrust that occurred, rightfully or wrongfully, because of the process that got us to where we're at today. And I think voting for this will be telling the employees, look, we hear that you're dissatisfied. You hear that you've got questions, that there's some distrust. We're going to listen to you. We're going to look at the numbers hard, and we're going to let you know whether or not we think we should stay the course and where we're at, or whether there are some other opportunities that we should consider. That's all we're doing here. And that's really because if that committee is formed and they say, look, we shouldn't change, we should stay exactly where we're at, I'll be supportive of that. And I think that that other reasonable-minded people will be that. But if they say, hey, look, we could have done it a different way, and you still can, what's bad about that? That's a great thing to hear. We may not hear that, but let's at least, and I know that everyone here says that we want to be transparent, we want to listen to, we want to listen to our employees, we want to be, supportive of them and so forth. This will do that. And maybe just let me go to a couple other things on it. There is a lot of distrust right now, like I said, amongst the employees. And, and I think we've got a lot of people, now, have they filed grievances? No. But I can tell you to a person, my non-union people were deeply disappointed with what happened, and they didn't agree with it, and currently that's still the case. And that's why there's been a lot of talk with the commissioners and so forth. Hey, let's at least look at this. And you have to make the decision finally, and if that decision is to stay where we're at, then that's a decision that should be made. If it's to change it, that's obviously, if there's an option to do that, we should. Just to give you a couple quick examples before I sit down in regard to that, what the impact this has had. In the last year and a half, due to a big part to this, I've got 14 positions in my office. 13 of those positions have been vacated, some of them twice, and so forth. A year and a half ago, of the 14 employees I had in my office, I've only got 5 of them left. And I can tell you, they talk to me, and a big part of why they're leaving, some of them have sent you emails, have talked to you, is because of what happened. And I know of the current group that we have, that this issue has not gone away because of it. And part of it, and I'm going to be real candid here, and I'm going to try to be tactful, but there was some misinformation and some distrust that was generated by those meetings that we had and so forth. I'll give you just one example. We were told throughout the negotiations and throughout the discussions that there is no way that the commissioners will consider a grandfathering in the system from the defined benefit to defined contribution, which I can tell you, if that had happened, we wouldn't be where we're at right now. And that's what's happened in hundreds of jurisdictions and public and private businesses. That's the way they transition. They said that there's no way that the commissioners would consider a sunsetting of 10 years or 5 years and so forth. And we believed them. We were told that by your representatives and so forth. But you know what, we got close to the time to vote when it was really far down the road, and I know you guys wanted to do something. I talked to several of them, and we hadn't talked to you because we were trusting your representative. And what I was told by multiple individuals that were on the commissioners, hey, if you would have come to us with a grandfather clause, that's exactly what we thought was going to happen. But I think, again, for whatever reason, we weren't told that. We were told there's no way that would happen or that would even be considered. So bottom line, there's been a lot of distrust, a lot of ill will and so forth. I'm going to start where I'm going to end where I started. If this committee is set up and your ultimate decision is we got to stay where we're at, and that's what makes sense with the facts and so forth, I'll be there with you.
I wish you had been there 2 years ago when I was a lone wolf on that board, and I didn't get none of y'all coming up and supporting me when I tried to keep the damn DB to begin with.
Yeah.
Now you all are coming up and doing all this here? Now? Why now? Why not 2 years ago when we were doing this? I was the only person that voted no for the changeover, and I didn't get none of y'all coming up here doing what you're doing now.
And I appreciate the fact that you were, and I appreciate the fact that I'm assuming you still are, Jeremiah, because again, I know you have been strong in favor of the employees and so forth. I'll just go back to what I said again, was we were told that the commissioners would not do this, Jeremiah. And again, that's what we were told by your representatives.
Because I was outvoted.
Yeah, well, there were others that felt the same way that you were, but again, that's not what was being represented to us. So, bottom line, sometimes it's better to get on the wagon late than never. And I think that again, all this is it sets up a committee to discuss it. It doesn't say you're going to do it. It doesn't. And again, too, if these folks back here, and there's a lot of them here tonight, and I can tell you, every one of my members of my office would be part of this group too. If I had asked them to come here, every one of these people are looking at your vote tonight, and every one of them, and as well as the other dozens and dozens, over 100 employees that are with the county. They're looking at your vote tonight, and they're hopeful that you will do what I know you believe in doing, which is trying to represent the people of this county as well as your employees.
What are you saying there, Vic? Because if you're saying that we're gonna vote and we're worried about who's gonna vote for us, then anybody that thinks like that shouldn't be a commissioner. So if you're referencing to that,
I'm saying exactly what I'm saying, Jeremiah. I don't.
All the vote does tonight is moves it to the next meeting.
yeah, so those votes, I'm not worried about getting reelected on how I vote. I don't run my business like that or this chair.
Well, Jeremiah, I'm not, what I'm saying is exactly what I'm saying. I know that you all of you want to support the people of this community, and I know you also want to support these people. And one of the ways that you can do that is by having a committee to look into this. And that's going to send a message to your 100+ employees that you're listening to them and that you're willing to talk about this, not to make a decision, but to talk about it. And that's all we're asking you to do.
Got it.
Let's just keep the conversation going. Thank you.
We're talking 47 employees, not over 100 in
Well,
this particular scenario.
I can tell you, the union folks agree with us as well.
Okay,
And I can
if there are
tell
no
you
more
that
discussion
it's-
points from the board, we need to vote.
I'd like to say something, if I can.
Everybody okay with that?
So I just have a couple of quick questions. You want to set up a committee to talk about it, but it sounds like talking about it has already happened and discussion's already happened. So why do we need a committee? The second thing is too, Commissioner Marquetti asked Commissioner Lawrence how many complaints they received. And you said several, but I'd like to know how many, because there's 47 in the non-union group, so that percentage matters if it's 3 versus 40. And I also just want to make a statement, like, I understand, because I wasn't here when all of this happened, but I do understand the discussions and the conflict that happened during all of that. But at some point, you also have, you're here to do what's best for the county. So yes, there's 170, 180 employees. There's 55,000 people in Cass County that rely on you to do what is best for the county financially. Going backwards is not going to help our financial situation as a county.
Just from my perspective, it just seems like the timing of this is kind of difficult, puts us in a difficult position, particularly because we're handling a budget right now. And the fact is, we already did pay out the $593,000 in bonuses for this transition plan, but I will not stand in the way of a fact-finding mission if that's what is being asked here. But I also want to make sure that if there's any other elected officials that haven't already spoken, you might as well take the opportunity now to get what's off your chest so we can make sure we're making the right vote.
Any other discussion points?
The only thing I guess that I want to add is that we did not, no one was aware that we would have the legacy debt that we have. We did not realize that it was going to affect the budget this year. The whole time we were presented, it's going to save the county money, it's going to save the county money, it's going to save the county money. We've got all this bucket of money, and we're going to give this money to the employees so that they can transition, and it'll lessen the impact to them. And then it will save the county money. Indeed, it didn't. The very next year, it cost us more money. Now we've decided that our future employees, we can't even offer this package that we've created. So we've already admitted we've made a mistake. Right? We've admitted we've made a mistake. We can't afford the plan that we've come up with for our employees. Your point, it was how are we gonna balance the budget? We're probably not gonna be able to offer this same package to future employees, which impacts us as employers. Because that means that I'll have employees in my office that are getting these benefits, but if I have to replace one, well, we can't offer those same benefits. We already recognize the impact that it's had on the sheriff's department. Every one of us knows it's had an impact on the sheriff's department. So, again, yes, you were not here for these discussions. I will tell you that these discussions, all of this didn't come out. I was shocked how much more it cost us. I'm hopeful that there is a solution. We obviously can't live with a budget deficit of $4 million. But we've already admitted we've made a mistake. We have said that we can't afford to give these benefits to employees, future employees.
We said we were going to look at benefit offerings as part of the balancing of the budget.
I would like to know what other employees give their employees for benefits in the Cass County area. I
Great
think
thing for
that
this
would-
fact-finding mission.
that would be-
A great thing that
Yes.
this committee can look at.
Yes.
And again, I'm not,
That's what I would like, part of the committee, if we proceed with this, to look into.
I guess since you invited us as elected officials, I did want to share that, yes, I was involved in those meetings, but all of this information was not shared with us. We were told it was going to be savings immediately and for the future, and it actually ended up costing us more.
What?
The accrued $1 million is down like $4.5 million.
It did save, yes, but the
Only
immediate
4.5 million.
impact, it didn't save. The next year and the next year, maybe at some point, but for right now, the next, how many budgets are going to have a deficit?
We see a significant savings in the legacy costs just this next year, and then it goes down further the following year. I mean, the first year of implementation was going to see the highest amount of legacy debt, so we expect that to go down because you're obviously paying down the unfunded liability.
As of October 1st, the legacy debt will go down to $282,000. The following year, it will go down another $90,000 for legacy debt. So it will be essentially cut in half from where it is right now.
And that's good information to have. I didn't have that when we had the last budget discussion, because
I didn't either.
And how did we just get it?
I got it from MERS.
That's great news. That is great news.
Absolutely.
But the fact that we were not told that impact was going to happen the next year, that's what I wanted to share. That's all.
I do want to note the transition plan was recommended by all of our elected officials. It was authored by our elected officials.
That's not correct.
Yes, it is.
It was changed, I've got to speak on this. The transition plan, we agreed to it in this room, we asked two commissioners, do you agree with it? And they didn't oppose it, and then when it came to the vote, it was changed.
It was altered in one way.
Yeah, and that's an alteration, Matt, that's an alteration, you know from my letter.
We're not gonna scream at each other.
The healthcare savings.
That's gonna
plan
solve
was-
nothing.
The healthcare savings plan was implemented. It's 4%. The proposal from the electeds was to keep the 4% in MERS. The same contribution ratio is still there. It's just divided amongst the healthcare savings plan and the MERS DC.
We left that room with an agreement, with no objections to it. We came in here a week later, and the agreement was changed significantly. We had sold it to our employees the way that we had left the room with. When we came here, it was changed. And we did not support it. The commissioners got a letter from me that night or that morning saying that again, you
Yes,
took us
it's
down a
true.
false road.
I remember that letter.
I'm not gonna try to cut you off, but can we save all these discussions if we have this potential committee and we have
That'd be great.
them
Well-
in those committee meetings?
Well, that's
Because
what
we're
the
beating
county-
a dead horse right now for no reason.
Well, that's what
And
the
I mean no offense by saying that.
Yeah, I understand.
Is discussion over, or is anybody else would like to discuss on the board? All right, there's a motion on the floor, we've had discussion, there's support. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any nays?
Yes,
Motion-
I say
One
nay.
nay.
I
Motion
say
carries.
nay. I'm tired of it.
All right, moving forward. Let me get back to the right spot. Is item number E, fiscal year 24 budget.
Ooh.
Mr. Chairperson, if we're going to talk about the budget, could we have a 5-minute break?
I'll say time to resources or recess. Okay. We'll get back at 7:10.
Submit.
There was no changes submitted by the treasurer's office, the prosecutor's office, maintenance or veterans. Sheriff's was on the list, but he made some changes yesterday. And I'm not sure if he's done, I never got the word to say he was done.
Sorry?
Are you done making changes
No, I'm
to the
not.
budget?
I can explain a little bit if you want.
You're welcome to.
Could we get a copy of the handout?
So I met with Matt and Jen say the administrator and the finance director, I apologize. On Friday, we discussed that my budget has gone down below the non-employee related lines for the last 2 years. So 2 years ago, it was higher than it is today. So I asked them, I said, we had this moratorium, we can't cut people, no layoffs. So the only thing we can cut is our goods and services that we use during that. So we met, and when we went through and made some of those cuts and everything, but with the moratorium and no layoffs, that's the only way we can get there from here. So I still gotta have gas, I still have to have things to do that, but we made some changes. Jen made some great suggestions on some of those, and like I we talked about not getting cars next year. She says, well, that really doesn't help next year's budget. But it'll help the budget down the road because we're paying now for cars that we've already purchased. So I just want to explain that we had that conversation. It was a big conversation with the board of my office to do that. But that's basically what it comes down to when you're looking at the budget. I'm requesting less than I did 2 years ago for those services. But the problem was I don't want to say this in the room, but the MERS, $360,000 higher for the road patrol, the road division, or the sheriff's division it's called. And the jail didn't go up as high. But now we're starting, one of the things I should comment on just a little bit is, one of the things I learned in MERS conferences is when you have the transition we made, it continues to go up for a couple of years after on a severe climb, and then it'll take the crash. It sounds like you've been told about that possibly happening. You didn't really get a chance to explain what you've learned from the MERS information, but that's what can happen. So that's where the big costs go up, 3% pay raise for everybody and the MERS costs. So and then everything else falls into place. I just want to explain what took place. We still have a few things we can work on. That's kind of where we're at.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
Everybody ready to discuss?
Mm-hmm.
I do have a question, and Dave, maybe you can help me with this. Is there a specific reason why I can drive past lawn courts at midnight, 1 a.m., and it's lit up like Las Vegas?
Other than it's been that way as far as back as I can remember, long before.
We just leave all the lights on to have them on, or is there a specific purpose for all the lights being on at lawn courts?
If you would like them turned off, I'll make it happen.
I don't see a reason why we couldn't at least consider having some motion detectors on some main lights in the hallways and corridors that go off after a certain hour.
Happy to. I mean, if it's a safety issue, that.
We can work around safety issues, but even lights here and parking lights here, I mean, midnight 1 a.m. rolls around, we don't need parking lights on, do we?
Certain nights, yes.
Certain nights.
Well, yeah, but if you have them on timers, you can set
Yeah.
timers accordingly to, okay, well, it's daylight savings time, we need to have these lights on a little earlier and on a little later.
Yeah, they all have timers already, so it'd be easy to change the hours on and off, yeah.
Because, I mean, looking through the claims, our electric bills are rather salty.
And all with that, I hate referring back to the military because I'm not in the military no more. I'm not. But I ran Fort Custer, and we had the same thing. Our electric bill for Fort Custer was like a month was in the millions. And we had the same thing with light discipline is what we called it. You know, ain't nobody here from World War II, but if people see movies and stuff where they have light discipline, where turn your lights off. Along with that is the state restricted us. We couldn't have personal microwaves, couldn't have our personal coffee pots, heaters, fans, stuff like that. Is that something that we want to incorporate with the light discipline? You know, because I had a fish tank and an XM radio that I just let play, you know, because I had a bird in my office and all that, you know, for his companionship. I had to get rid of all that mess. Is that something that we're going to have to tighten our belts on, you know, as well? Is we can't tell you all what to do, but, you know, that's your buildings, but as far as this building goes, and then as far as our capacity, can we put that into effect?
Well, actually, those are our buildings.
And that's a policy, that'd be policy committee type of thing, not here, but a policy committee. Maybe that should be looked at, you know. And I see what Jen's got here, that's great. I looked into and I discussed with other people about how much we pay our county attorney. Who is that guy?
Carl Buter.
Carl. And we had talked about a possibility of having our own county attorney that we put on the payroll at $120,000 a year or something like that, or a certain amount of money. And I don't know, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it was about $1 million cheaper than what we're paying. You know, if we had our own county attorney that everybody could use for cost savings. Jackie, the old administrative assistant is in this actuarial, John, you know, for his, like the deputy administrator, and
There's no deputy.
that's
listed anywhere.
Are you asking if it's a part of that budget?
part of this.
What was done is the deputy administrator position was taken out.
Yeah.
So that one wouldn't be hired for in the next year. And then the other position, we were looking at dropping that down a few grades. So that would have to come to you guys, but it was budgeted with thinking that that would come down a few.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I
So
meant.
that was a change that was.
So mine was that going to the committee for, the policy committee for lights and electronics, personal electronics, and that county attorney, I don't know where that would go, if that would go to a committee or something like that, but I think it's something that we need to look into, you know, for cost savings, you know, because we give that dude a lot of money.
All right. Carol, I don't want to cut you off, but Vic had his hand up before you did, so Vic, if you still have something, go ahead.
Yeah, just on the light discussion and so forth. I've been around long enough to see that cycle through a couple times. The reason, there was a time when it was totally dark, and there are employees that come in the evenings. For instance, in our office, if we got a homicide going on, or we're working on a major project, we'll come in, and it's pitch dark. It's a liability issue in that regard. I think if there's a way that you can find a motion sensor or something where they can be flicked on so that there's security for employees that have to come in the evening. But beyond that, I agree, I don't think they need to be on all the time, but that's the friction on it a little bit.
And we had already addressed that with Monica with certain days, so if you would just let us know, not us, but let the maintenance director know, then you can get those lights turned on for that period of time, you know.
And maybe it would be good for me to have a discussion with them, because I think my office is the most frequent user after hours in the dark type of stuff.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some type of motion sensor that if you know you're coming back in the dark, just flip the light on before you leave, and then it's gonna be on when you come back.
And, yeah, and there's been rumors that people have put sticky notes over top of that motion detector, that way the light just stays on, you know? So I don't know about motion detectors, you know, because those can be overridden.
But I'll chat discussion and see if there's.
Go ahead, Judge Beeler's actually gonna go next real quick, man.
I was just gonna say, maybe all of our offices, we should have those motion detectors checked, because in a couple of the offices I know that I've occupied, they actually didn't work the way they were supposed to, and they had to be fixed during my occupancy, because if there's lights left on in our whole building, that's strange, because all the offices have those detectors, and they're supposed to go off when people leave.
My description of all is seeing the two big corridors from the road, and it's nice and bright.
Sorry, I thought you meant like, because.
Yeah, you can't see many offices from the road when you're just glancing at the building.
Okay, but maybe it would be worth having him check to make sure all of our motion detectors are working, because they are on all the offices.
Okay. Matt, go ahead, hope you'll
Yeah.
be next.
Just to clarify a bit with the attorney, looking back at our budget, or the finance report, for this year, through 6/30/23, attorney fees were $35,783. At the same time last year, it was roughly 78. So the one challenge with attorney fees is that those are really highly variable.
Mhm.
You know, the
Yeah.
last couple of years, there's
Yeah.
been a couple different cases that
Yeah.
came in that had some significant costs with them.
Yeah,
And in a normal year, those costs are probably not going to be to a point where we may see the savings we might think with having
Okay.
in-house counsel.
Yeah.
In some years, it could be a big.
Oh
big
my
plus.
God.
In
Yeah.
some years, it could be, well,
Yeah.
we would have overspent. So
Yeah.
it's a hard one to
Yeah,
say.
that was just a suggestion.
Treasurer Anderson, go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I wanted to add about this building is the temperature fluctuations in this, in room to room in this building are significant. And I could probably attribute it to the age of the building.
Yeah.
But.
Yeah.
Different
literally be
systems.
burning up in the hallway there and then freezing in the next
Yeah.
hallway. Or my staff could be freezing cold and then it's hot in my office. So there's some situations with the temperature control in this building. I think it would, we probably want to, prohibit employees from having those fans or devices here. That's just my suggestion.
I didn't say yes, I just put it as a suggestion. But I get cold too.
All right, what do we want to do from here? Does anybody got any more discussion points on the board?
Well, we're looking at the budget, so we dropped it. $627,767, and so it is now $2,801,443. I'm not gonna pass that.
I'm not either.
I don't think that's okay.
How long do we have what's the actual
Look,
date?
it's got to be passed in September, first meeting in September?
Supposed to be approved by September 30th.
Yeah, because it's got to be ready for the fiscal year start.
And that was a redundant question for the next thing. With that MERS meeting, or committee, should we, because it was suggested that we had a budget meeting, or committee also. Is that worth looking into, or, because if we have to pass it and potentially take blame or praise,
Why do we
shouldn't
take-
we have more involvement?
I'm not
Go ahead.
passing
Why do we
this.
pay professionals to work in professional offices to continue to set up all these committees to
Right, yeah, that's just
to
a
relive,
suggestion.
rehash, redo things that we've already paid professionals to take care of?
Yeah, you're right, just a suggestion.
And I mean, I don't mean that in a bad way, it's a simple question.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, let me say this, I appreciate,
I'm referring to professional staff we have on our staff, paid as employees to take care of specific things,
Or their own budgets.
whatever it's regarding to. Matt being the administrator, Jennifer being the finance director, whatever it may be. Why do we have paid professionals in these positions if we don't trust what they're doing or make it
Yeah.
seem like we don't trust what they're doing?
Yeah.
Sometimes another set of eyes on the subject, and,
Non-biased.
yeah, it doesn't hurt to have checks and balances, and I'm not saying anything bad.
The checks and balances when it comes back to the board for a
Right,
vote.
but there's, Jim and I look at claims and we find things that need to be corrected. What's it gonna hurt? What's it gonna hurt?
If it's people that aren't making money, then by all means, look at it all you want, but I don't see the point of spending any more money to look at something numerous times. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, one thing to note, with respect to the revised budget is even within that 2.8, I just want to highlight the fact that as the normal process we've had over the last several years, and I'm sure this has probably been an ongoing practice for quite some time, is that there is a $500,000 transfer that comes from the general fund to the public improvement fund. So I guess I wanted to highlight two things with respect to that. Is that with that $500,000, that's still available for use for future projects or large projects basically that are over $20,000. That fund currently has, I believe, it's about $800,000 in it right now. That is one area where we wanted to really highlight that that's not an expense and that you're buying something and that money's going out the door. It's staying here at the county. That could shift around back to the general fund if it needed to. I mean, I know that we've got capital improvements and things coming into the future, and so I think that's really the idea behind that is to kind of plan ahead, but that is something where you could reduce that amount if you so chose. You could say, you know what, we're gonna transfer 100,000 there, and bump it up to 900 instead of having 500 going. Or, I mean, just with the acknowledgement that that money is still there. You can move it around how you want to, but it's not necessarily something where, when you look at that 2.8, the net, that net amount less that 500,000 is really what you're seeing in terms of full expenditures that are leaving the county.
Go ahead.
So, I understand that, you know, the 2.8 is a high number that you're not in favor of passing, and I completely understand that. So as a new commissioner, I'm concerned, what is the next step then? If we don't wanna pass it, then what do we expect to happen?
Well, the second meeting in January, we unanimously as a board voted to request an option of a balanced budget, a zero budget. Second meeting in January. Good.
Just wanted to make a quick note before you guys decide what to do. I know a committee was brought up again. We are running short on time. I'm not trying to start a fire under anybody, but we do have to have a public hearing. It needs to sit out
Yeah,
in
it's
the
gotta be
treasurer's
posted.
office for about 2 weeks prior. We can't wait till 9:30. And time is going very quickly, so we're already, July 20th today?
Yeah.
And so really we might have maybe a month to work on it.
So from your perspective, what would be like a more solidified date that we should target?
September 1st.
Within the next month.
Yeah, September 1st.
At the very latest. And I will say that I've had a very hard time getting people to turn things in by the deadlines that are set, which is slowing me up. It's taking a lot of time. I mean, I'm not trying to say a pity party, but I spent 12 hours working on Saturday to make adjustments, and it's a lot of work. It doesn't just come together. So once everybody adjusts their numbers, I have a lot of work to do on the back end, getting everything formatted, getting everything ready. So September 30th seems far away, but we really need to be finishing this up within the next month. We can't.
Yep, we can't
keep
wait.
pushing it.
Right.
So
Right.
that's my biggest concern right now.
Yeah, so strike what I said about a committee. Yeah, that ain't gonna work.
So we as a board need to provide some direction for department heads, electeds, Matt, Jen, everybody.
You had said something, Monica, about there being additional costs with Prop 2. Is that included here? Do you have
It's
any?
not,
do
because
you-
I don't have numbers at this point.
Do you have an idea what that might be?
If we have to pay in full, it'll be about $500,000.
Oh,
At least.
is the state talking about giving us any help with that, or?
Secretary Benson went to the legislature and requested funds, and we're waiting to hear from them.
Okay.
And so once we know what the state will allocate, then I will know what is needed
Sure.
at our level. Once I know if I'm going to run elections for local units, if I have a location to use, if I have to pay for a location, I have lots of questions unanswered.
Yeah.
So it's
So I'm
not,
gonna have, we will absolutely have more costs, I just don't know the amount.
yeah, it's not 2.8. We gotta look at it like it's 3.3, is what you're saying.
You can't really put a cap number on it because you just have no idea what it could potentially be.
Right.
Wow.
Now's the time to talk about it.
We can make adjustments to the budget after the fact, right, after we vote on it, and if those costs were to come true, whatever figure it
I'm gonna
is.
come back to you with a request, that's my
Sure,
plan.
sure, sure. Yeah.
I don't want to plan on us just passing a zero balance budget though, but then to immediately throw on $1 million right after we pass it.
But you also can't pass a $2 or $3 million deficit budget and keep pulling from reserves. Hoping that it comes in less than it truly is on paper at the end of the year. I mean, nobody runs their personal finances that way.
Mm-hmm.
Has the discussion been had about hiring freeze? Does that benefit?
I would say it's been tossed around, but nothing formally is taking place, I don't believe.
Okay. What kind of impact is that gonna have?
So right now, there is about $1.7 million worth of vacancies. I do know that sheriff has some restrictions on, or I don't know how to say it properly, but that he has to have a certain amount of people. I pulled his out separately, so so it was sheriff and the jail. They equate to about $1 million, so everybody else would be about $700,000.
So can we hone in on the restrictions and see what the number would be when the restriction spots are taken out of the equation? Or the restricted spots are taken out of the equation?
I could do just jail separately, but I just knew that jail and road deputies, because we've been short on those and trying to get those, so that's why I pulled those out to the side for the 1 million, and then about 700,000 for the remaining. But yeah, I can get you just the jail number if that would help too.
Either way, it seems like a pretty significant number.
And that brings us down to like
It does.
$1.5 million.
Does anybody have a
deficit.
true faction of how short we are?
No, I mean, that's why we probably need.
We don't want to go cutting jobs that we're short on right now and not saying there's a hiring
No.
freeze for every opening there is, because then what happens when you get a flow of applicants, which hasn't been crazy lately, and you can hire 3 or 4 people, but we've not hired 3, and then we're still short-handed.
It would be a problem for some, I can tell you. I mean, I have 4 employees, and if I was told I couldn't hire somebody, it would be a problem.
Especially them elections and all that
Especially
craziness.
during an election year. So, yeah.
We should probably come up with some sort of direction before we leave this table tonight.
You said no committee and leave it to the professionals, so they're right there.
So, what do we have in the budget stabilization fund? Is that figure in with this at all?
That is separate and it's at right around $500,000.
567 or somewhere in there.
I know it's right around $500,000, I don't know the exact, way too many numbers.
I think it is something like that. I recall the last thing was, yeah. So,
I guess the key question is, if we're looking at this, is the board, does the board want to look at getting to a zero-based budget this year? Is it something that we want to look at implementing on a, on a kind of ramping into that, so kind of into a longer-term basis, like, hey, we want to see this over the next 3 years, and I think.
According to this, we'll never get there. And,
No, I mean,
the numbers speak for themselves. If we're asking for a balanced budget, we'll never get there based off the cuts that weren't made now. Numbers don't lie.
I think from the preliminary budget to, I guess I don't have the percentages offhand with this one now, but I know that was from that original preliminary budget that was presented, the difference between revenues and expenditures in that instance was roughly, what, 14%, if I'm not mistaken?
Yeah, I figured about 15% for a raise and do the grant expenditures and such.
So, I mean, roughly, that's what we'd be looking at in terms of a reduction in the budget to get to that number. I mean, and the one, again, the one caveat that I can think of offhand, there may be others, but, you know, that transfer to the public improvement fund, do you keep that intact? Does that change? You know, that's a $500,000 transfer that happens. Does that get adjusted? I mean,
well, with the public improvement fund and the budget stabilization, that's $1 million right there.
We can't get too excited with the public improvement fund yet until we know for sure that we've got that 1.5 from the USDA in our account.
that's true.
Yeah,
I don't disagree with that.
yeah.
You think we'll know about that this month?
Ideally,
He said hopeful 30 days, at worst 60 days. But that, I mean, that's what we hear every other time we get to
Yeah.
the next level of
Yeah.
freedom. Then poof, here's another 90 days, or hey, we don't know when we're gonna look at this. And that's what we've gotten every step of this game. We can discuss it now, or we can reconvene another time. I mean, we gotta figure something out. This is one of the biggest decisions of the year we get to make, so.
Maybe our whole year, whole career.
What about property we own that just sits there?
Go ahead, I'm not gonna cut you off, go ahead.
No,
You gotta
I'm
speak
just-
up though, because we can
I'm
hardly
just,
hear you
I'm
over
just
here.
asking about that.
Surplus property that we
Yeah,
have?
that we don't use. Have we ever thought about?
And we just had that discussion at Parks there, Mr. Vice
Yeah.
Chair.
Yeah, we did, we
Yeah, we
did,
did.
we
I
did.
don't think you,
We did.
time is not on our side right now.
Yeah, we don't have the time to even try to make that a resource, and we,
No, I'm just talking like,
we shouldn't try to sell property to fix a budget deficit issue.
no, like in the future for like, as a reserve, I mean.
Yeah,
is there-
there's been a discussion in the Parks Committee last week. of-
Yeah, I remember that,
Yeah,
I was here.
and I dove into it 2 years ago, looking at some different parcels the county owns that are signified as parks or deeded as parks, and we hit a roadblock with the county attorney. The county owns a parcel on Diamond Isle. It's classified as a park. It's full of trees. Nothing's ever been done with it, so why do we own it?
You can't sell it. It's-
We were told from the county attorney that the way it's set up, that if we tried to sell it, it would have to change hands and it would give option to the township, the DNR, and the blah, blah,
Well-
blahs, and the other blah, blah,
Well,
blahs.
if they would have first
By the time it
choice.
succeeded through that list of
Yeah.
groups, you might as well not sell it because you're not gonna get anything for it.
Can you rent it?
If somebody wants to rent a .7 acre parcel full of trees, yeah, we'll run it, sure. But who would rent it?
You never know.
I
Because you're not gonna
would.
let them make capital improvements on it because they don't own it, nor would they invest money in doing capital improvements on it because they don't own it.
Oh, they might,
I would, because I like to go there
But
and
again,
just
let's
sit.
yeah, yeah.
get back to the
That's-
task at
that's-
hand. That's
yeah.
not going to solve our issue.
That's off the track.
So do we give everybody another 2 weeks?
I've never had
Talk about this
problems.
again at the next Board of Commissioner meeting? Do we have any direction for anybody? Do we want to offer any direction to anybody?
Is there anybody in the audience that can speak to this? I mean, anybody that we haven't heard from yet?
As far as elected officials or
It
the
seems like
public.
they've all done what they can do so far, right? Can anybody do better than the numbers we have on paper right now?
I mean, you can give me more time, but there's nothing else I can cut, and I know he doesn't wanna hear me say that other word. But I mean, like-
Please don't.
Yeah.
Like, I've cut everything and even like took things down that I may have to come back to you and say, I've gotta pay for it, but I'm willing to on paper, say,
Thank you, Carol.
don't give it to us,
Thank
but,
you.
I mean, there's nothing else I can do. But, so you can give a deadline, but I can't make any more cuts.
Okay.
So,
Do you wanna tell them how much you cut? It's quite
Yeah, you did,
substantial.
you did a great job according to this.
I mean, Jennifer was really helpful in helping us look at our cash spending, but she and Matt both understand, like, if I have to lock some kids up, I'll have to come back.
Yeah.
I don't wanna do that, I don't wanna
Yeah.
lock kids up, but I'm just
Yeah.
saying. But she identified
That's-
areas and we did all the things we could, but the only thing left I have that's a high dollar amount is wages and fringes, and I'm not saying I wanna cut. I'm just
That's,
saying
that's
the
who I
only
want
thing
to hear
have
from,
left, so.
right there. Let me hear him.
Carol's probably taking a deeper dive than we have, so we'll take the next 2 weeks, we'll look at ours again and chat with Matt and Jennifer and just see if there's any place else we can cut more, so.
Did, you were on that list of not giving her anything. You did?
Right, that's why I said what I just said.
So you need more
I
time.
said, you asked if we wanted 2 more weeks to do that, Jeremiah?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
okay.
yeah.
If you wanna try and
Okay.
shame me a little bit, that's fine, but if you want me to do it.
I didn't say that, man. That's not what I said.
That's what it sounded like.
Okay, so
Okay.
is everybody in agreement of talking about this again at the next board meeting?
Yep.
All right, does anybody have any board member comments or announcements?
I do. I understand that some of the subjects that we've talked about here tonight are very controversial, and I just want to remind everybody that we want to keep the level of respect at a certain level. We have people who are looking at us through video, we have people in the audience. We got to check our feelings at the door and just keep having respect for one another, because we're here to serve our community and the employees of the county. We just have to hold ourselves to a higher level of responsibility.
Thank you, Sam.
Mhm. Especially me.
Anybody in disagreement of adjournment?
Nope.
I agree.
Meeting is
I-
adjourned.
so